that, and if we were aware of that, all we would do is forward the information to the appropriate probation officer. A lot of times, not a lot of times, there's instances where probation officers said, do not arrest, you arrest. But again, that's not in the database that we're getting when we run a check on all these folks. If I ran you and you're on probation in Ramsey County, it isn't going to come back and say you're on probation. Well, if there's a warrant, absolutely. If there's a warrant entered, that goes into that will go into the national database, and a lot of times we'll get a hit on a person that is from out of state, the warrant's out of state, that's going to be an extradited. We even see some warrants in Minnesota when they go like to the county, but generally it's a petty, misdemeanor or some minor infraction. But probation violations is up to the DOC agent, not DOC, it's up to the county agent, state agent, or the judge. It's really a condition, violation of probation. Actually, it's a violation of release condition. But I believe that the probation officer has the authority to hold you if they choose to. So if I don't have anything to arrest you, and I don't have your probation officer telling me I want him placed into custody, I can't arrest him. So they can actually do this.
There's a lot of times they'll say, tell them to call me in the morning.
Right, yeah.
Something, they'll take care of it. As long as they know what they're going to do it, they may not charge it out that night, but if somebody's a violation, it's a violation.
So it's not up to the sheriff's department to make the charge of probation violation, it's up to the PO or the judge?
Some people are arrested because of a probation violation, but it still gets taken care of down the line. The person could even be, if something happened, that could go with the court, be convicted of it, and it's still bring a probation violation. A violation is a violation, so.
And then they'd be held accountable at wherever the violation could have occurred here, but the sanction may be in Mammoth or Ramsey, because that's what it is on probation. I'm not saying one person, that person would be in another county. It's something that would be helpful to officers. We've worked at that for years, but it's just there are so many people on probation conditions of release, it's next to impossible to track.
So you said that there was nothing at all that officers could have done tonight that we're all here questioning, because there's no way they could have stopped anybody from getting back in their car and driving until they do 24/7.
You're not overly limited. Now, some would argue that I have seen cases where people have been prosecuted. Let's say if a better way to look at that is if somebody had been injured, that may be an enhancement to help a different charge. Because some would argue you're impaired. I've dealt with people that are 3.0 and higher. That function is normally as I am right now. You have no indication that they're under the influence, but they drink every day or they're alcoholics, so their system deals with it differently. You may get somebody that has 2 drinks in their 1.0 and they can't even walk. But there are some ways to get under an impairment you can still be considered impaired under the legal limit to drive, but there's some other enhancements that goes with that. So, and that's kind of what we can do. I think you have the first one. Yes.
Is open bottle against the box, or can you pick people up for open bottle?
Yes.
And then I have another question, because I kind of done what I don't drink at all. But,
Well, you're not on the smart.
I mean, you know, what the law today, you know?
Yep.
If a person, how many DUIs can they get before it's a felony?
Well, it's actually possible to get a felony DWI, I believe, the first time, but then we go to these enhancers and, like child endangerment, over 0.20. It's not that I don't know what DWI laws, it changes continually. And it's to protect us, but normally it's, I think, simple. Normal DWI is a pretty simple DWI. Let's just say you're .08. But if you get stopped for the very first time and you're over .20, you have a child in the car, so you're adding a major. You've got an enhancement for the tool. You've got an enhancement for the child in the car. There's ways of getting that way up the scale. Normally, we see felony DWIs are somebody that's had. I've personally dealt with people that have had 7 or 8 DWIs. They're still driving. They're revoked, canceled, they still driving.
Well, I was just wondering, because there's so many tribal leaders, and there's so many congressmen, or people of that nature, that get stopped and nothing happens to them. They can keep going, get the guy himself, what that killed someone.
I couldn't agree with you more. If the law is good enough for you and me, why isn't it good enough for the guy sitting next to you? There are some major changes in the DWI laws now. I think it's after the second, please don't quote me, but I believe it's the second time around in 5, I believe you have to use a, what do they call it? You got to blow into your car to get it to start. Like an onboard breathalyzer. Second time around, you've got to get what we call whiskey plates. Notice the Minnesota plate is just white with a black or blue color with the WSWI. So they're doing, and that gives the officer a little more reason to check that car if it has that listing. There's innocent owner defense, which I totally disagree with. So if you have a DWI and you buy your son, I'm just using an example, and you know that he's revoked and you buy him a car for DWI, you're going to drive it, it's hard for us to see. So if that happened, we would give you an innocent owner defense letter. If this happens again, the car belongs to us. So you can't say that. We'll seize 3 or 4, 5, 6 cars a year. We cannot seize vehicles that are tribal. That's a similar. And you asked about what model, that is civil regulatory, so that would be no state check. If you're a criminal offense. I'm sorry.
Isn't it a class C misdemeanor?
What's that?
Well, it's not safe.
Well, but I've been told different, so that's how we treat it. So if you're a tribal member and you get over lava, you can technically go to tribal court.
Minnesota statutes label it as a criminal offense.
I agree with you, but we got to get the attorneys to agree with this. I'm not being sarcastic, please don't think that. I agree with you 100%. You know what? You're driving on the highway if you violate the law. You know, it doesn't matter which court you go to as long as you're held accountable for the action you did. So it's...
But is there, like, if it's a tribal leader or one of the tribal governmental members out there, can they cry sovereignty? That you can't touch them?
They can, but we're going to do our job.
Oh.
We not only hear, this may sound stupid, but we hear that 10, 12 times a year because I'm serious, we stop people that are not from this country or they're foreign and they have something to do with government. I don't care, we should deal with it in court. We don't, it does happen. But generally, I've never heard of an incident here. Every now and then we'll have a person, you know, I'm sovereign, I'm part of whatever. We can't give you a citation or anything. It happens. But we just deal with it normally, and then the courts have to sort out. So normally when we would stop you, especially, we generally don't ask you, if you're driving a Leech Lake registered car, we would probably ask you, are you a band member, so we know to send, let's say we stop you first week. So we would go send a ticket to tribal court, as opposed to district court, because if it gets to district court, then it takes another 2 or 3 weeks to the tribal court. But since the law enforcement agreement has come into effect, that works pretty good. But we don't want the officer standing on the street at 3 o'clock in the morning asking you, are you a band member? Because that can really be offensive. Just if you don't know, issue the citation, let the courts decide where it's supposed to go.
Well, that's kind of a scary way of doing things, though, when you're dealing with the tribal leaders, because they're scared to get, you know, that you can arrest them and you can send them stuff to the tribal court. You ain't gonna show up with court because they might fire the judge if the judge does something.
Well, if it's a state, and this gentleman here is right, if it's a state, if it's not a civil regulatory, they treat it as it's no different than here. And if it's in question, we write the
you know, if they're so serious, if, like you said, if they're so serious, why would they keep them in jail?
There's good reason. It had nothing to do with, I won't talk about it. I just won't. I can tell you this, officers use discretion every day. And the officer, our officers are, we have a 0 tolerance in DWI, let's leave it at that. They're not letting anybody go. I guarantee you, if I find out one of my guys giving somebody a break, they won't work for me, period. I can tell you that didn't happen. They're good, hard-working guys, and I appreciate your concern, but I want to tell you that no way, shape, or form is anybody getting a deal cut. Now, that's not to say that if we didn't stop you tomorrow for a little stop sign, and you were sick, late, sometimes a break is due because just the circumstances. But there are no breaks for you guys. Plain and simple.
Sure.
So now you said the county attorney was investigating this, and if they were found guilty for whatever, what happens to your deputies or your?
Well, the county attorney is investigating. Like I say, when we write a citation, if there's a question, it's reports are compiled, a case file, the county attorney can look at it, say we think you should charge this, or the discretion is there for them to decide what to charge. So it's a possibility another citation could be issued. There's not, if a person gets stopped and they're under the legal limit, the county attorney can't tell you to write them for DWI because they don't proof. And the indicators leading up to that is what really helps an officer make the decision as to where to go. And I can tell you, my guys make good decisions. They're trained every 2 years in the standard field sobriety stuff. And I'm not proud that our guys write a lot of DWIs because it keeps us safe. I'm proud of the job they do. And I'm not a crusader, I'm not a prohibition guy. I'm trying to make the point that it's not, I don't want to be back part of that nice list that we were once on because it's quite embarrassing and the whole state of Minnesota knew we were in the top 13. So.
Chief, will you take one last question? You want a question?
I've
Because I
got a few
promised
more
him.
minutes. No, go ahead.
Are you sure?
I won't talk about it.
Okay.
Unfortunately to that, what I was thinking, if you're not arresting these people that are drinking and driving, and you're letting them go home or something, can't we as citizens get together and sue you for our not being able to be protected from that person that's on the road? Any one of us could run across them and not know.
Possibly, but if they're not over the legal limit, we can't arrest them.
Well, not only that, but for open bottle or for whatever the heck they're doing, when we find out all of that's.
I don't think we let many open bottles go. You know, and again, if you have a specific case you want to visit about, come down and see me, or I'll come see you. As long as it's not private data and it's public, I'll be more than happy to visit with you.
It'll be private data because it's about our leaders and it's
Well,
not private.
When a citation or a complaint or the court, any attorneys here, my understanding, and I'm not asking so that I don't say anything wrong, I'm just thinking I have a different opinion, but once the case is completed, the disposition is given in the case, depending on the case, the majority of it is public record. What isn't public is like domestic assault victims, sexual assault victims, those things do not become public. But the majority of cases that go through the system become public. There's some other exceptions to violent crimes. If you ever have a question, I'm willing to talk to you as long as I can. And I just want you to understand nobody's getting any favorites out of my guys. To include you, to an extent. But well, I'm not trying to be smart. Yes, sir.
This is more of a technical.
Okay.
This is more of a technical question compared to a lot of the generalized law enforcement questions. Were your men operating their dash cameras at the time of the stop?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you think any? I don't know if this has been asked. I got here late, but do you think there'll be a time in the future where we'll be able to review the camera or the footage of the stop itself?
That would not be public record.
All right.
But I can tell you that all the squad cars have digital cameras inside the squad car, as well as all the officers has to come on. Now, with anything else, and this isn't, I'm not covering anything up, this stuff works about half the time. So right now, and these cameras cost $5,000 a piece, okay, and we have 40-some squad cars. So right now, we don't know what to do. We're presently using Digital Ally equipment over at Big Lions Head, right there. It's a fashion company, but we need to find an alternative because the problem is they don't hold up to the fold and the beating and the pounding in the cars. So we need to get a system that works. And the purpose of the camera in the car and the officer, it's not, we're not checking up the officer, but it allows us to help do performance evaluations. You'd be amazed the amount of complaints we get on officers' misconduct, and when we have that tape, it eliminates that issue. Because people perceive things different than they really. You and I can see the same thing, but I might have a little different take than you. So we utilize this often as we can. I read the case, I can't remember, but if it's operating, it's to be, it automatically comes on, we can turn the car on, and then it's downloaded. We have a retention schedule, which I'm not. I gotta grab the lady in white first and leave.
She is.
Oh, okay.
Does the legal camera on you guys over stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And just one thing. If you do that, just be careful so you don't, I don't know how to say it, but be careful. Don't create an issue for yourself. I'm not saying that turning the camera on is an issue. Don't do something that if the officer says, if he tells you to turn the camera off, all right, you can have a camera. Just don't start doing something that he may take action with. Keep sticking your hands in your pocket, or because if they think you've got a button, there's going to be some issues. But you absolutely, you have the right. He's got his camera running on. But I still deny it, and he says. But yeah, so that you absolutely can. When you get stopped by an officer, a good rule of thumb: keep your hands on the steering wheel. Can I help you with that? There's nothing wrong with you. Say, what are you doing? Why are you stopping? And I think we find that things go a lot smoother. But we run into people constantly that are totally combative, and I understand. They probably had an unfortunate situation with officers before, and we're not all the same. And if you have an issue with one of our officers who want to know about it, we're going to address it. We'll get to the bottom of it. We track all complaints on the officers. At the end of the year, we turn those into the post board, who license us. And the reason we do that is, number one, to make sure we're impartial policing and treating them properly and fairly. And lastly, if I have an issue with an officer, we'll address that. So if I get 2 complaints from you, the officer was rude to me, he's going to find himself, if it's substantiated, he's going to find himself going to some sensitivity training in 4 years. Yes?
I don't really have a question, I just have something to say. What I wanted to say was, I really want to thank you, Kim and Avis, and commend you, and for having both of you come here, because I really truly believe that we're setting a precedent, because we can no longer tolerate this kind of behavior by our leadership. Obviously, it's not really condoned here in society, but in our tribal society, we've just turned and looked the other way. And when you talk about alcoholism and alcoholic behavior, it's like don't talk, don't think, don't feel. And I truly believe that by talking about this and coming together and taking action on it and standing up and saying, no, we are not going to tolerate this, is really making a difference. And I believe we're setting, we're really having a historic moment here. And we're just really happy about that. And I know that Kim and Davis have done a tremendously amount of hard work. And I mean, I know because I've been out there myself, and I know how hard it is. I know what you're coming up against when you expose somebody for wrongdoing. And it's not an easy task. And I just want to let everybody know, and them too, with it, and that it's, you know, that it's acknowledged by me, because I understand, you know, what we've gone through. And so I think our band members really need to be very proud of you too. And I know that
come in and talk to him, he'll take care of it. Because I had an issue in Hackensack, an officer pulled us over, pulled a gun on us, and at the post office of all places, you know, and I went in and talked to him, and he checked it out, and he got it all taken care of.
You know, we got two more questions. I appreciate that. One thing, don't take this wrong. I am not going to get in the middle of the politics here, the council and stuff, but the point I'm trying to make is I want to fix little issues that we have before they get to be big ones. Okay? And that's why I encourage you, come see me. And if I can't help you, I'll tell you. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. We do make things up from time to time just to get out of meetings. But the point is, let's fix the issues so that we don't, because, you know, there has to be a level of trust for us to be successful in what we're doing. We live in one of the most beautiful parts of the country, the state. It's a good area. We need to, I got to get you first, and then.
Okay, one question, Ed.
Yep.
Part of the procedures of giving out tickets, normally when I used to get in trouble, I get tickets and usually ask me for an ID before they gave me the ticket.
Well, see, that was a long time ago, right? You're only 40 anyway, but see now, generally now when an officer writes a citation, they can run it up the computer in the car and see your picture. So they can see you write, so they, nowadays they'll take your name and date of birth more as opposed to what, they'll accept that as not having your ID card. So they can run you up the computer, get your picture.
That'll give you a background check on your driving record.
All it tells you is whether, you get the citations and just the system that the officer uses in the car and the portal system that the dispatcher uses in the communication center is totally different. So we can only access your driving record and status. It won't tell us if you have a warrant. It won't tell us if you have like an OFP, if you're a responder or recipient of an OFP. So the systems are different, but we can look you up, we can tell what kind of vehicles register you and any traffic violation. Yes.
The second question I had is, a few years back when you were running for sheriff, I know the tribal council and Steve White had publicly endorsed you in our newspaper called the Mahama. And you pretty much answered my question earlier, but you know, just for people to hear it, probably like to have you.
Can I respond to that?
Say that you treat us all equal like you did earlier.
Well, let me respond to that, because I'm elected. I'm not here politically, I'm working. But to my knowledge, the Leech Lake Reservation never endorsed me. So if you saw that, no one ever told me that. They asked me about it, I stayed away from it, because you know what, I don't care. I grew up here. You look awful familiar, so you know, you're just agreeing, right? So he's probably going to say you're full of crap. I grew up over by Ringer, went to school with a lot of kids from Cass Lake. I lived here all my life in part of this community. I could care less what color your skin is. It's got to be fair for everybody, or it's not going to work. And if I wasn't sincere, I wouldn't be here, okay? I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear, and I appreciate you bringing that up, but I never saw that they endorsed me, and even if they did, it doesn't make any difference. I know people that endorsed me and contributed to my campaign that have been written to DWI and have also been written.
You just told me you're not like your tribal leaders. You don't give a favor back.
You can't. Yeah, right. Yeah. You know what? It isn't worth my job to give somebody a break. But I will consider if it's something that isn't DWI related or was just a minor misjudgment or infraction.
And the last question I had was about the dispatchers over there. When you call them and report a crime or something you see out in the ordinary, do they kind of ask you for your name, your address, your cell phone number?
They are required and told to get as much information as possible. And the purpose of that is we're not checking up on you, but we want to make sure that if something bad has happened, we have some way to get back to you. A lot of times, if you don't call in on 911, or if you do call in on 911, you may may not be the person that's calling from 911, you may not be the resident. So the more information we can give you, a good example, it involves some native kids. We had an incident at Walker School last winter, you're probably all aware of that, okay? Somebody calls from school, get the cops here, slams the phone down. I don't know if we're sending officers to a gunfight or if we got a food fight. It was a mess. So we try to get, and that's an extreme situation, we try to get as much information from you as possible. The reason for that is so we can keep track of you, we can give you information to the officers responding, bring the right, we don't know if you have a medical, we don't know if you have domestic going on. The more information that dispatcher can get out of you before we get to the better off we are, get the resources that we need. I hope that wasn't too.
I just wondering, who does the Pike Bay Township police have to answer? Like,
Do you live in
I'm always hearing complaints about Pike Bay pulling people over for no apparent reason, blah, blah, blah. They make their complaints to Zeb or whoever the chief of police is out there, and they get no results. Who do they go to after Zeb?
After the chief, you could go to the town board if you're unhappy. I'm a little different because I'm elected. But the chief of police, you would go to, if you're unhappy with the chief, go to the township board. They're no different than us. They're required by postal to log all complaints. But with that said, just a word of caution, there's always two sides of the story too. So I'm not saying Zeb's doing everything right, and I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong at all. I just, sometimes you hear stuff.
I was wondering who Zeb had to answer, if he had to answer Cat County or...
No, he's somewhere to do it.
Now, when the initial stop occurred, did your deputies by chance follow the vehicle? Did they call tribal dispatch, try to get a rundown on the plate number? Was there any kind of delay? Did they immediately turn, activate?
I won't talk about any specific case, but our officers do not use tribal dispatch, we use our dispatch center.
All right. Because the vehicle in question had tribal tags on it, and I was just wondering if they called ahead of time. If so, how long did it take for them to activate the stop? Would that have lowered the BAC level? Just trying to piece it together in my
No,
mind.
again, not specific cases, but our protocol is you go through our dispatch center. And I can tell you, again, I don't care if the license plate comes back from President Obama, they're going to stop, they're going to bail the phone. Don't tell them I said that.
No,
Was there a threat of physical violence by Mr. Blake? And if so, what you intend to do about it?
I didn't comment on that as nobody.
Okay.
You know, he has another appointment this evening and he's been
I
over.
will wait if you want. Is there anything else I want to Well, I feel bad. You know what, I do have another commitment, but they can wait how long. If you have something, let's visit it.
All of a sudden, here comes the squad car. I mean, this guy was doing about 90. This was, what is it, Casper County, what's his name there? And these guys showed up on the lights, they were sitting still. I mean, there wasn't nobody in the car. They didn't have the light on. Do you guys abide by the speed limit?
We are required to abide by the state law, just as you are, Mr. Lights are centered around. In some instances, we can use just lights.
We kind of thought maybe.
If you notice on the back, all of our marked squads, there's 4 big numbers. If you got an issue from one, you write the number down and call me. All those cars are GPS tracked. I can tell you where they are any time of the day, where they're sitting, and we will address why they were violating the law.
Why they were.
In some instances, they do respond without lights and sirens. Certain things that the statute allows us, but if we get in a crash and hurt somebody, we can't be liable. So they're liable for traffic violations as you would.
I had a question with officers being left for the law. One night, I drive a single shuttle, I come around the corner and there's a squad car sitting right in the driveway, all its lights shut off. I almost crashed into it. I called the dispatcher that night, complained about it. She basically told me that the cops don't have to abide by that rule, and they don't have to have their lights on. I said, well, next time I'll take that crash into it.
Yeah, they do it when that happens. unless our red lights and siren are activated. Yes.
What about speeding?
Officers,
Yeah.
in certain instances, they can without the red lights and siren on, but not in Wi-Fi. So, and let me tell you, I get a lot of complaints on speeding cars, and they're addressed. And if the officer isn't responding to something or doing something, he's held accountable for it.
Do they have to, when they're speeding, do they have to leave their home?
Not in all instances. Under certain circumstances, they can go without, but that doesn't mean they can drive 30 miles at 100 miles an hour to get home because they don't want to be late. So, yes, sir.
Is Cass County interested in long-forming charges against the chair or the driver of the vehicle, sort of like a careless, reckless, considering her BAC was 1 point below impaired driving level?
I won't answer that, it's an open case.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to do this.
Yeah.
But I hope you understand there's rules we follow.
I got a question. According to that state statute 169A35, the owner or the driver of the vehicle should have been ticketed for open bottle as well, according to how the statute reads.
That the officer has discretion. I want to talk to you when we're done. You're not in trouble. I just had a question on that. That's a discretion of the officer, but the owner of the vehicle has to allow it and know about it. How do you prove? So here's, not talking about this case. If you're in a car and you pick some people up and they jump in and they're in the back seats drinking and the driver didn't know, it's officer discretion. You have to. The issue here is we, as in criminal cases, we have to show intent and we have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, can it be proved because a driver of this vehicle was intoxicated at the same time this person was issuing an open bottle?
Like, I'm not going to talk about the case, okay? Like, we have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Did you let him do it? No. Were you aware of it? No. Pretty tough to write the ticket. But if that person sitting in the next seat next to him holds a big bottle in front of God and everybody, it's pretty obvious what's going on, so you probably write the ticket. And I'm not trying to be evasive. I hope you understand what we have to go through to get citations and things through court. And, you know, I'm telling you again, these officers are good officers. They use good discretion. They know when they can write tickets. They know when they can get convictions. And honestly, they're keeping us safe. And you know what? I support my guys 100%. And if they do something wrong, I'll stick my neck out and say we did something wrong. But if they're doing their job, I'm supporting them 100%. Yes.
Now, when you're saying that you're not commenting because it's an open case, is that because there might be some liability later on if you disclose something that you shouldn't have?
Well, there's private data, confidential data. There's a lot of different data out there, and it's just I've learned a long time ago to keep my mouth shut until I'm told I will talk, which I don't do.
How do you do that?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
How accurate is your red license? How do you feel?
Generally, they're well. I can't give you how accurate they are. Every year we recertify. We require. It's not state law, but we require recertification on them. Check the PBT, not recertification. Just check the. I can't think of the word. We check them yearly. I'm using the word certify, but we don't certify them. We don't calibrate them. We're just checking to see that the calibration matches. If they need to be calibrated, they actually have to be sent away to have that done.
So you send them away once a year?
No. They're checked in-house through the main machine, and if they coincide with the main machine, that is, the court accepts that as certification. We do that yearly. The issue with PBT is a non-municipal court, so there's a discrepancy of accuracy. But if you refuse testing, then that PBT becomes admissible. So, but they're pretty close. And you know, you take an example, somebody's in Point 08, okay? And you pick them up here just north of town. You know, you start your paperwork. We now have started doing e-filing DWI, so the officer can do all DWI stuff right in the car to save time. We've got to wait for the toll. It could be an hour and a half when we get in jail. If they're going down, we might have an issue when we get into the touch. if you're .08, you're gonna be placed under arrest, okay? The issue is going to be, you're asking how accurate the PBT is. Well, we're hoping that it's real close to what the intoxilizer is. That's the way they're calibrated or certified. So my point is, it's possible to arrest somebody at .08, and by the time you get them to jail and get them tested, they could be under the legal limit. Now, technically, you could still charge it, but it becomes extremely difficult to do, so officers are encouraged. You make the arrest, don't move around, waste time, get your work done, get into jail, get them tested. So,
Can you comment on how long the traffic stop was?
no, I don't know.
32 minutes.
That's all along.
Well, you know, we have other things on
Yes,
our
well,
agenda, you know, and I
maybe
want to
you're till tomorrow.
thank you, Chief, for being here. Here's a pound of rice from Kim and I.
Well,
And Eric, you know what, we'll get you, but you know what, we'll get you some.
I'll come back about racing.
Thank you so much.
I have some more questions. I think this is